So they were gruesome murders that went unsolved for decades. 22-year-old Angela Brasso, 17-year-old Melanie Burness both disappeared while out for a bike ride. Their bodies later found dumped near canals. Brasso's body left naked and mutilated. It took investigators 22 years to make an arrest. DNA evidence leading police to this man, Brian Patrick Miller. Now 7 years later, his case is finally going to trial. It's a death penalty case, but there will be no jury. A judge instead will decide the outcome of this trial.
So he's having what's known as a bench trial, which is an unusual move. There are a lot of unusual things about this
There
case,
really
actually. So let's get to it. Talk to Dwane Cates, criminal defense attorney. Hello, Dwane. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
First of all, here we are 30 years later. This is before even I got to the Valley, but I remember when I got here, people were still talking about this case. You had a young woman and a teenage girl killed in awful ways, and the killer was still out there. Now, all these years later, not only did they find their suspect, but now he's facing a bench trial. Explain what's going on here.
Well, you know, bench trials are a little unusual in death penalty cases because a lot of times the lawyers will try to play on the sympathy of a jury. Now, generally speaking, you want to have a bench trial when you have a technical legal argument that's kind of hard to understand, and you want a judge that's law trained to make the decisions about your argument. It could be the insanity defense is one of those that they may proffer, which they may benefit from a bench trial rather than a jury trial, because these were gruesome murders, and you put that up in front of a jury, you know, they're not going to care, you know, what his mental state was at the time. You know, they're just going to, you know, they're going to want to find him guilty. So a judge may rule on the technical legal issues, and it may be more beneficial to the defense to have a bench trial.
Are bench trials rare?
They are rare, and mostly because you have to have both sides have to agree to a bench trial. If one side says, I want a jury trial, then you're going to have a jury trial, as long as it's jury trial eligible.
You know, I thought we had issues with the death penalty years ago when judges were sentencing people to death, and so they had to go back and have these jury trials all over again. You had to be sentenced to death by a jury of your peers. So what's happening now is you're saying both sides are agreeing to go by whatever this judge says, and he's waiving that right?
Right. You can waive a constitutional right. You do have a constitutional right to have the jury determine death, but apparently the defense attorneys and the defendant in this case have signed off and said, it's okay, I'm going to allow a judge to do it.
Wow.
So what do you expect, if you can share a little bit about the process moving forward, like in a typical court case with a jury, we know kind of what happens. Is it pretty much the same before a judge?
It's pretty much the same. It's a lot faster when you have a bench trial because, you know, normally you'd spend, in a case like this, you'd spend 5 or 6, 7, 8 days, 2 weeks picking a jury. Okay, in this case, they don't have to go through that process. They can just start the trial. Also, during a jury trial, there's a lot of bench conferences because there's legal arguments that need to be made outside the hearing of the jury. Okay. And so they have to stop. You see them all gather around at the bench or take breaks to do that. They don't have to do any of that in a bench trial.
So basically, right now, they're saying that he committed these crimes. It's just a matter of what his state of mind was?
I don't know for sure what the defense is. I'm just saying it would make sense if it was insanity defense to have a bench trial because it's more technically legal than it is, you know, emotional, and a judge would be a better one to do that. But I have no idea what the actual defense is going to be in the case.
Dwane, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It's going to be a case we obviously are going to be watching here. How long do you expect it to go?
These usually run a minimum of 2 weeks, but with a bench trial, you never know. It can go pretty quickly.
Yeah, good to see you, Dwane.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you for coming in.
For your insight.